Welcome to Creative Mornings Atlanta, y'all. Good morning. Oh my gosh. My name is Amina Brown. I am the chapter host of Creative Mornings Atlanta, and I am just so happy to see y'all's faces. Wow. I started leading this chapter in April of last year. We did all virtual events last year and then had to start virtual the beginning of this year. So to see y'all's faces makes me very emotional and makes me just want to cry. Wow. These are not announcements that I'm supposed to be saying right now. So just in my feelings today. How many people, this is your first time ever having been to Creative Mornings? Let me see you. All right, first timers, give them a hand. Yes, we love to see that. Also, I had heard a rumor that the founder of this chapter is in this room. Blake Howard, are you in here? All right now. Yes. Y'all clap for Blake Howard. This chapter is 11 years old this year, and we would not have a chapter if it weren't for Blake Howard. So shout out to you, man. Good to see you. That's what's up. Okay, if this is your first time here, we just want you to know this thing is not just happening in Atlanta. This is happening all over the world. We are one of over 200 chapters globally, all along the same theme. So that means we're here, but people in London, people in Chicago, people all over the world are doing the same thing. So that's pretty cool, right? Shout out to that. This thing is always free because we love free. And we know a lot of you, especially those of us in freelance life, sometimes it's good, but sometimes you wonder if you're going to eat chicken for those who eat chicken, or tofu if that's you. You know what I mean? You just have to know what you can afford. Let's talk about our monthly theme. Our theme this month is ethos, right? When we think about ethos, that is its culture, its community. It can be a place, it can be a people. And there's so much about the work we do that ethos plays a role in that. The companies where we work, even our families have their own center of ethos in a way. So we are going to get to dive more into that, which I'm very, very excited for us to do. All right, we could not do this without our global partner, MailChimp. And let me tell you something about MailChimp. We get them as a global partner like all chapters do, but we also get them as a local partner too. So they help make sure that y'all can drink this coffee for free, okay? That you can have a croissant and jam. Get involved. Thank you, MailChimp. Love to see that. Also, MailChimp has some things you can check out. You want to make sure you go to MailChimp.com. Right now, they have a project that is 3 strategies for winning new business. So you want to make sure that you check that out now. I can't go on without talking about this amazing space that we are in. We are here at the Center for Puppetry Arts. How many of you have been here before? Yeah, okay. I was actually just here on Wednesday. My husband and I came for a date night. We trying to boo up a little bit. And we came here for Ghastly Dreadfuls, which is the set that you are seeing here. And I wanted to tell y'all to come to that, but if you didn't come already, honey, the people sold out those tickets. They sold them out, but don't worry. We have some other announcements. You can come back and look. The Center for Puppetry Arts is for kids, but it's also for you as an adult, okay? There are adult shows you could come and see if you like that type of thing. So we're going to talk about that. But we felt like it would be remiss to be here in this space and not have a performance from a puppeteer. Are y'all ready for it? I'm excited. I want to introduce to you all Reay Maxwell, who we're about to see perform. Yes. Come on and get the applause already, Reay. Yes. Reay is a professional actress and has been a puppeteer in Atlanta since 1999. Her work has been seen in over 30 productions at the Center for Puppetry Arts, in addition to performances at the Alliance Theater, 7 Stages, Synchronicity, Dad's Garage, and the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. Will y'all welcome Reay Maxwell.
Thank you. So excited to have you here. I am Reay Maxwell. I'm the assistant producer here at the Center for Puppetry Arts, and came to Atlanta because of this place. I am from Boston, Massachusetts. Did not know where Atlanta was on the map until I found myself a puppeteer, which is usually by accident. When I found out that there was a center, a headquarters for the art form here in Atlanta, I thought maybe it's actually worth considering living in the South. So, and here we are, 30 odd years later. So, ethos to me means a lens of communication. It means a period of time, a period of culture, a period of an era that we can view ourselves through when we compare it and when we look at it from a larger picture. In a way, puppetry represents that as well. Really any art form, I think. But puppetry, and what drew me and so many of the artists that I know to this art form, is the fact that it's influenced by every other art form and every other dynamic in the world. I went to puppet school. Yes, puppet school. I did. I have a master's in puppets. I spent a lot of money to play with puppets. But one thing I did learn is that puppets have been around since the dawn of time, and they've been around a lot longer than they've been around for just kids. We are one of the only countries in the world that thinks of puppetry primarily for children. Puppetry began as a sacred communication between the spirit world and the ancient Chinese thoughts. It expanded to Indonesia, Southeast Asia, Asia, and beyond in Europe as a way in the Dark Ages to inform the masses of what the heck was going on. Very political. It's a great foil when you are trying to make a political statement that you know is going to rattle the establishment. You can blame it on the puppet. Like, for instance, here, my friend Lester. Lester is a puppet that we use in the Ghastly Dreadfuls. Lester is a rod puppet, meaning he's got these sticks on him, and they allow me to move him and bring him to life. Now, Lester is an older fella. He's a retired Pullman car porter from St. Louis. Lester doesn't move very fast. Lester doesn't move very spry. Lester probably has never entertained a child beyond a toddler, maybe in his lap. But Lester has a lot to say. And you can find it all behind the eyes, in the thought, in the shadow, in the breath. Lester's made of wood. Okay? So the idea of puppets, the idea of being able to imbue an object with a life, with a soul, is a metaphor and a symbol for anything you can think of, an emotion, a fantasy. And it can be created through object that's being translated from the human body. Now, it's great for kids, but it's pretty complex. Now, Lester's a great example of one form of puppet. The other thing that's so cool about puppets is that because they are objects, you can make them any form and shape, and they can do all kinds of other things beyond sitting in a chair. There you go, Lester. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to show you, before I do that, another thing that's great about puppets in terms of ethos is they offer a new perspective, right? So you can have a perspective like Lester. You see him there in full form. You can also utilize puppets to isolate perspective. This is a flat piece of wood. It also creates a symbol, a gesture, a thought, an image, something that's alive. But it has to be imbued through the heart of the performer. It's an extension of the human ethos, okay? So, moving forward, I'll take this arm. All right. So the last little example I'm going to show you, a completely different look. A different perspective entirely. Welcome to the graveyard. In the graveyard, we want our figures to be able to be otherworldly. to do things that we can only imagine doing as human beings. Unfortunately, we have not been creating humans to fly on their own yet. However, when you have a string puppet, you can create a world where anything is possible. We use string puppets to tell stories that exist in an environment that a human being can't. So in this case, this is our fiddle playing Death, who threw out the piece, which is music only. It's to the score of Danse Macabre, the classical piece. He summons all of the spooky characters from any good Halloween story. We've got ghosts and skeletons. We've got witches and demons in our graveyard. We also have a small cat who witnesses the entire thing. That cat is done with a rod puppet down on the ground. So there is an interaction between styles of puppetry, and that only expands the story. When you come to the Center for Puppetry Arts, we strive in every production and in certainly every museum exhibit to introduce this wide variety of what puppetry represents and how puppetry is created all over the world. And we emphasize the hybrid combination. That's how we evolve. And an ethos is only relevant so long as it evolves with the current spirit of what's going on around us. Puppetry, again, honors the past and encourages that evolution of idea that can be manifested any way you can imagine it. Now, you can see this when you go to the movie theater. You can see a million different things at the movies that you couldn't create in front of a live audience. But the key is the live audience, that connection, that communication between the live performer through the figure and out to the crowd. That is the extra character, the extra ingredient you're not going to find in the movie theater. I don't know about you, but I feel it right now. Right? All right. I think that's probably all the time I have today. I want to thank you all for coming. This is really an honor to be able to speak with you today. I hope you've had a chance to see The Ghastly Dreadfuls. If you haven't got your tickets, sorry. It's a super good show. But please come back. Bring friends, family, children, and yourselves. We have so much going on for adults and including ways to get involved yourself. This seems interesting to you? Join us. Please, come and join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reay Maxwell. Yes, that was amazing, right? Getting to see how the puppets work. That's amazing. And if you would love to know more about poetry, if you didn't get poetry, child, that's what I do for a living. But can also involve puppetry. See, look at that. Now, if you would like to learn more about puppetry and you didn't get to earlier, don't forget to check out the museum upstairs as well. There is an exhibit up there where you can check out some really cool stuff and you can see even more of what Reay was explaining. Oh my goodness, so excited. Also, we want to say a big thank you to Center for Puppetry Arts for hosting us today. Oh my goodness. Don't you feel like you're already in the Halloween spirit? You know, we're already here experiencing a little bit of a spooky vibe. And I want to give a special shout out to anyone here who is a scaredy cat like me. I mean, it really goes only as far as Beetlejuice for me. You know, if you start getting further into some scary things, I'm like, it's the candy and that's it. So if that's you, I see you as well. Okay, thank you. Center for Puppetry Arts is the largest nonprofit organization dedicated to the art of poetry. They offer I said it again, didn't I? It's like poetry is on my mind. It is, literally. Wow. It's puppetry, y'all. It's the Center for Puppetry Arts. But I could come and do a meta thing, Beth. I could come and do a meta thing where it's like, it's poetry, puppetry. Let's talk about that because that could be like fascinating. Center for Puppetry Arts, y'all. They offer 600 performances a year. 50 plus types of customizable educational programs, plus the Worlds of Puppetry Museum, which we want to make sure you check out before you leave. Go walk through there, learn some things, and bring yourself back over here. I think when many of us who've been in Atlanta a long time, you may have come here as a kid. You may have brought kids here before. Bring yourself. It's also things for adults. Isn't that you? An adult? That's like an extra grown person. When it's not adult, but you're an adult. That's like a certain level of like how many years you paid your taxes. Be an adult and come here to the Center for Puppetry Arts. Ghastly Dreadfuls is sold out, but now you know about this. So that means if you're a person who loves Halloween things, next year, make sure you get your tickets early. But let me tell you what's next. It's about to be holiday time. And Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is going to be here, running from November 9 through Saturday, December 31. So make sure you get your tickets, honey, because I hate for you to miss out. Okay, we want to learn a little bit more about the Center for Puppetry Arts. When I go home, I'm going to be saying puppetry 24,000 times today. Do you understand me? So while we're bringing out the TV here so that we can make sure we are able to show you this, we want you to be able to watch this and learn a little bit more about the center. And then we're very excited. We're going to get to hear from the executive director today, and I'm going to come back and tell you a little bit more about her. So I'm going to let Jeshua work this out. I feel like I should be able to do some tap dancing for y'all right here. I should be able to do some poetry with puppets. Me and Ray should have got together about that, because all I have is words, everyone. What else do I want to tell you? This is our last morning event of the year, so we're so excited to see you all. Our next morning event will be February of next year, but I will have more to tell you about our last event for the year, so we in there? Other things I want to tell you that I don't do this by myself. There's a team of over 25 people that help me run this event each month. So if my team is here, will you raise your hand so that people can see you? Anybody that volunteers with Creative Mornings, yeah, give them a hand, y'all. Listen, I could not do this by myself, or it would be like a lot of cussing. It's probably still a lot of cussing, but enjoy. It's cussing with joy. That's what we like to see. Check it out.
In 1978, Kermit the Frog with puppeteer Jim Henson cut the ribbon on the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, the center is the largest nonprofit in the U.S. dedicated to the art of puppetry, welcoming over 160,000 visitors a year. The center presents over 600 full-scale puppetry performances each season. Its education department offers more than 50 unique programs, including its Create a Puppet Workshop, where children can extend their theater experience by creating a theme-based puppet of their very own. The center's Worlds of Puppetry Museum contains over 4,000 artifacts, including the largest collection of Jim Henson puppets in the world, along with an immense global collection of puppets from nearly every tradition around the world. For over 20 years, the center's digital learning department has provided interactive puppetry workshops and puppet shows from its digital studios at the center. As a pioneer in the field of distance learning, the center's digital learning team has honed its skills and refined its ability to deliver and develop purpose-built, curriculum-based educational programming that has been presented in all 50 states and more than 75 countries.
Really what makes our programs unique is that we have this art infusion into our programs. We don't just want to be a talking head. You already have a disconnect with the classroom being somewhere else. We don't just talk to them. We have lots of different movement. We use kinesthetics. We build a craft. And there are just so many different aspects of our programming that really tie and bring those children into our studio as if we were there with them. The puppet is not just a craft that we add on. We really try to tie it into the teaching of the program. So a great example of us doing that is in our butterfly program. We'll talk about the life cycle of the butterfly. We'll talk about the body parts. And as we talk about those things, we'll do something with them where what makes a butterfly, what is it categorized as? Well, it's an insect. What makes it an insect? It has 3 body parts. So we'll do a little movement, head, thorax, abdomen with them. And then then we'll go to our puppet building and we'll add that right after we discussed it, saw it on our butterfly. So it really helps with that learning retention.
This year, the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration honored the Center for Puppetry Arts with its prestigious Hall of Fame Award. As the world struggles to teach and interact online, the Center continues to do what it's done for decades: deliver accessible, award-winning, curriculum-based programming to anyone, anywhere.
We are so excited to welcome as our speaker, Executive Director for the Center for Puppetry Arts, Beth Schiavo, joined the center in August 2019. She has spent 25 years in corporate as well as the arts education and philanthropic community. She was honored in 2021 as a Woman of Excellence by Atlanta Business Magazine for both her business leadership and philanthropic activities. Let's welcome to our Creative Mornings and Center for Puppetry Arts stage, Beth Schiavo.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, this is incredibly exciting to have this audience here with me this morning and joining us and sharing this stage. I'm not usually up here on stage, so this is really exciting for me as well. So thank you so much. If you had an opportunity to look at my bio, and don't worry, if you didn't, I can sum it up in like one sentence. I was in the corporate business world for over 25 years and then had the opportunity to work on a project here in August of 2019. And then at the height of the pandemic, decided to stay here for good. And it has been phenomenal. It's just been life-changing for me. I'm so excited to be here. But what may seem odd is how a business person ends up in such a creative ethos. And with the topic today at Ethos, I'm really hoping that I can explain how that cross-pollination works and why someone from a business mindset, how they can interlace together in a creative environment and create something that's pretty magical. Ethos is a spirit, it's a vibe. We've had a lot of descriptions about what that means. What it does mean to me is a way that you feel, like you know it when you see it, or in this case, you know it when you feel it, right? And we have positive ethos, we can have toxic ethos, and I would hope that everyone has the goal to be part of a positive ethos experience culture and work to improve that for their communities, for their organizations, for their families. And one question that came up to talk about was, in what ways of moving through the world did I inherit? And I think that's important to talk about this cross-pollination of business and creative as it comes to me as the leader for the Center for Puppetry Arts. So I'm going to get a little personal here. I grew up in a family of artists. My mother was a visual artist, commissioned painter. She's 79 years old, and that lady is still knocking out paintings. And if you go to her house and you're fixing the refrigerator, if you're just coming over for tea, you're going to leave with a painting, because that's just how things work for my mom. And for those of you who are creative artists in the field, you know that feeling of just needing to create. And that is my mother, so she doesn't get a dime off of it, but she's able to leave her work and leave her imagination in the hands of somebody when they leave her house. And that really drives her, and that drove the creative spirit of my house growing up. My brother was also an artist. He was kind of like my mother, version 2.0. Like, his skill set was stronger. He was actually educated here in Atlanta at the Art Institute of Atlanta. And in addition to being a visual artist, he was a graphic artist. He was an incredible photographer, so he would do headshots for his friends. He also did local theater, and he did everything from acting to singing to stage design. And again, like so many in this room, if you're an artist, you're kind of a little bit of artist everywhere you go. And that was who he was. And then my dad had this really boring job with the government, so super boring. But that didn't stop him, because he also was a storyteller. So when my brother Tom and I were growing up, he created this character called Roger the Bird. And Roger the Bird every night went on some adventure with his friends, and he'd go to the city and see his cousin. He would go to the zoo. He would do all these different things, bringing to life for me and my brother what was out there in the world. When I was a little bit older, my dad figured out that, this was actually a pretty special thing. So he wrote it all down in his handwriting and illustrated all the characters that we had talked about for years. And then my brother, from those illustrations, created, wait for it, a puppet. Kid you not, Roger the Bird puppet. And so Roger the Bird would actually help tell some of the stories. My brother also went on to be a puppeteer throughout middle school and high school. He was part of what was really popular puppetry club in churches. I don't know if you guys have ever, they had those little puppetry clubs to get all the kids into the churches. And so my brother did that for many years, both making puppets and also performing puppets. And so I had a little bit of that in my background as well. So what does that do? It creates this personal ethos, this creativity ethos that I grew up in, and I had the benefit of growing up in that space. Now, I also have some creativity. I could pick up most instruments and figure out how to play them quickly. But when it came to who I was from an identity perspective, my brother was the artist. I was not the artist. I was the academic. I was that front of the class, annoying human that was like, I know. That was me. But I was still creative, and I truly believe that creativity sits in all of us. And I was very fortunate to grow up in an environment where creativity was around me, because that helped me in my career as well. Creativity is all about optimism and confidence. You have to have optimism and confidence to be able to imagine something in your head and bring it to life and share it with others. You also have to live in a world of limitless possibilities. Because if you're creating something in your head, you've got to think of all the different ways that you can bring it to life. There is not just one answer. There's endless answers. You also learn resilience. I think everyone can appreciate any type of creative effort. It's very rare that first time you try something, it's perfect. If anything, it gets better each time in the process of improving it and pivoting and going in a different direction is where that magic lies. All of those attributes that I was around all the time growing up informed who I was and who I am as a business leader. So how do you put that into practice here at the center? Well, during the height of the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, let's all go back there for just a second. I'm not going to scare you. But we all remember that feeling of being isolated. And if you have children, that uncertainty of what's happening. Am I going to school tomorrow? Am I going to see my friends? Am I going to see my family? Am I going to see my grandma? All of that uncertainty and fear was its highest level. And that was worldwide. And here at the Center for Puppetry Arts, as you saw in the video, we're very fortunate because we have 2 incredible digital studios, and that provided us access to our audiences. They couldn't come here. The lights of the theater were off. The museum was closed and locked, but we could get to them. So we very quickly, as a leadership team, said, we have all this incredible content. How do we get it out to our people? Do we charge them? Do we not? Do we this? We got on Facebook Live within 48, 72 hours, and we offered free programming on Facebook Live 5 days a week and a number of hours each day. And the video you saw that talked about 75 countries, we went up to 89 countries in less than 6 weeks. And the feedback that we received for this free programming aimed towards children was phenomenal. If you remember, Italy was hit really hard at the beginning. And when we started to get feedback from children and families in Italy, we knew we had done the right thing. Now, as a business person, you may think, well, gosh, we need to charge for that. Goodness gracious, this new audience. But that's not what my ethos would tell me to do and the ethos of certainly my leadership team. This was all about an investment in our community and creating a global ethos that was going to be positive for everybody. When I was 15 years old, my family moved. My dad, I told you he worked for the government, really boring job. He had another boring job, but it was in Vienna, Austria. And so I had the benefit of moving to Vienna with my family when I was 15, and I finished up my high school years there. So here we are, this very liberal, open-minded American in the Reagan era from the South. So you already can tell that cognitive dissonance that you're hearing when we talk about that. So I moved over to Vienna thinking that I was completely ready for whatever culture shock was going to hit me. I was not. I found myself being open to a lot of different experiences. However, my knowledge and my education of what was going on in the world was so much less than my international classmates. There's a UN office in Vienna, so the Americans at this school, this international school, were in the minority. And they were, kind of the bless their hearts people. We all know that, right? Not much has changed. But this was, again, Reagan era nationalism, it was like, wonder what that's like. Anyway, but so you can imagine me, this like Southern white girl coming in and being like all ready to talk about the way things should be. And boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. So over those 3 years, I morphed into something that informs who I am today in the same way that what I inherited from my family informs who I am today. And there are two things I really learned from that. One is you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't search for the opportunities to expand what you know, then you're never going to be full, if that makes sense. You can't be your full self and your full potential unless you seek to understand other people, other experiences. You walk into an international ethos and you don't belong there, you're going to find out a way to belong. And as you make that journey, you become a different person. The second thing that I learned there was it's all of our responsibility to share those experiences as we can to better the ethos, the experience, and culture of others. That informs what I do here at the center every day. It is important to me, having been the younger sister of a member of the LGBTQ community, to represent his community here in a way where everyone that works here or can come here is able to bring their full authentic self. Because how can you possibly be fully creative if you can't be fully yourself? So the best work that we do here is when there's honesty and authenticity and a little bit of vulnerability. So that's important to me. During 2020, it wasn't all just about the virus. When the headlines were filled with horrific news and the Black Lives Matter response to that was seen everywhere, it reinforced this idea that we still had a lot to learn. And where better can we be a part of making that better than in a place of performance and in a place where storytelling is possible and rich, not just for kids, but for adults. But how do we make sure that our stories include everyone in the community? That it's not safe all the time, which means white, but it's just everybody. And how do you do that with intentionality? How do you develop talent? Puppetry arts is not really known for its people of color. There are some incredible artists out there, particularly in the contemporary space. So we decided to embark on a program called Puppetry Now, which highlights a contemporary artist of color each year. And they come in as a resident. We give them our special exhibit space and say, create. And then we put them on our stage and have them share their work. And what's great about this program is it's not just a performer coming to perform center work, right? It's their work. So it's their stories, their contemporary view on what's happening, and how they have used puppetry to share those stories. It's also important to us that we improve and expand our audiences. So we intentionally go into communities that may have not had the opportunity to come into the center because they can't afford a bus, or they just don't have the funding, or gosh, they're just trying to make it through the day. But if we can intentionally go out and do outreach in their programs, then we can teach them about storytelling, and we can teach them about what it means to be creative and to live in that creative ethos. So even if they don't end up being an artist, they know what it's like to think about endless possibilities and what that means. So when I think about ethos, I think about it as a combination of what I've inherited and all the experiences that I've had that have made me be able to cross-pollinate some of this business knowledge that I have with this empathy and desire to support storytelling and creativity. I also think about ethos from the perspective of what I can influence. And as I get older, you become a woman of a certain age, it becomes more important to be an influence. So walking into a place and saying, where are the gaps? And how can we fill those gaps with enriched experiences that other people can have that can inform their ethos, their spirit, their feeling? We want people to come into the center and know it because they feel it. I hope you have a wonderful visit here at the center. Thank you so much for coming. And please take some time to visit the museum today.
Yes. Beth Schiavo, give it up. Thank you, Beth. That was so inspiring, right? We're gonna take some questions. I've already got a question. Yes. Okay. So you're gonna ask the question. I'm gonna repeat it here, just so we'll have it for the recording. So yes, go.
Can you talk a little more about your journey from the business world, specifically how you kind of negotiated
How this happened?
The decision to, kind of transition from one to the next, and what you feel you're bringing from everything you learned in those business roles to this role?
Yep.
Okay. So question is, how did you make the transition from being in the business world to now still in the business, but coming into art space?
Perfect. That was great. Thank you so much for the question. It is a question I get a lot. You look at a two-dimensional bio and you're like, what happened? What? So I spent a lot of time, again, because of my background and my own experiences and my own passions, I've spent a lot of time in the arts from a volunteer perspective, whether that was sitting on a board at Woodruff or what have you. And I had a conversation a few years ago now, it's probably 7 or 8 years ago, with, at the time, the CEO of the Woodruff Arts Center, Virginia Hepner, and she and I had developed a relationship. And I said, I want to do what you do. It's time. Because ultimately, I loved what I did from a business perspective, and I had a knack for it, but I wasn't deploying it in a way that brought me joy. And so she and I had this conversation years ago, and she said, listen, kid, just wait. Just wait. And I was like, okay. So sure enough, I was working as a consultant, just freelancing as a consultant, thinking that I was kind of like semi-retired, that sort of thing. I was like, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. And I get a call from Virginia, and she said, can you help the Center for Puppetry Arts? And I'm like, I love that place. Yes. And when I got here, it was like an anchor. It was fabulous. It was really wonderful. So that's how I made the transition. You know how I talked about the endless possibilities? I've never really been one of those people that has one solution for a problem. It's always like, here's the problem. Well, what are all the different things? So me just kind of meandering around and finding a home here is really not that unusual for me in the way that my mind works. So how do I help the center? I like to think of it in terms of I am the yes to the what if. Because as a business person, if someone comes to me and says, well, what if we did this? And what if we did that? I can go, yes, let's figure out how to do that. And so I bring the how, right? How do we do it? That's what I bring. And then get out of the way.
That's a word right there. Yes. Needed that there, Beth. Other questions? All right, right here in the middle. Yes. Project.
Hi, thank you for the work you do. I'm a recovering executive director of a nonprofit arts organization here in Atlanta. You've probably seen a ton of turnover in the time that you've been doing this position. It's something that I've noticed, and obviously since I've moved on and now have a job that has health benefits and all this. The question is, how do you maintain, or how do you propose you maintain the passion and continuity within the arts community when the burnout is so high in executive directors, and when the amount of work you need to do far exceeds what we would consider a rational work-life balance?
100%.
How do you manage leading a nonprofit and try to mitigate burnout?
Wow. Yeah, she's good. Well, first of all, I'll put a suggestion box, and if you come up with a lot of different ideas, you can add them there. I don't mean that to be pessimistic. It is something that keeps me up, to be honest, because this place cannot exist if the people within this place are not able to feel free of that stress in order to be able to do what they do. So, one thing that I can bring to the table as a business person is this kind of logical, pragmatic question of, well, what should our wages be? What should our benefits be? I may know of things that maybe my predecessors didn't know or didn't feel was available to them. So we've spent some time looking at pay and benefits here and having engagement surveys. Just really trying to understand what people need, not only financially, which is a big piece, but then also what they need emotionally and mentally. One of the things that came out of the pandemic was this realization for all of us that there's a lot of stuff we don't have to do within these walls. And so we have allowed for more flexibility than existed in the past about how people work. So that has helped a number of people in terms of being able to manage their own stress, their own life, their kids, whatever the case may be. But it is a continued challenge. And yes, we have seen turnover. We have poachers, as I like to refer to them, that come in and say, ooh, I like what you do there. We'll pay you all the monies for you to do it somewhere else. And so I'm sitting there with my wallet going, away, but thought about it. But it is something that we will continue to focus on in terms of knowing what the true market rate is for our people, which is hard because puppeteers there's not a huge population of puppet theater people that you can compare yourself to, but there are a lot of performing arts comparisons here, not only nonprofit, but for-profit, because we have film and television here too, and then that becomes a poaching situation as well. Ultimately, my goal is to make sure that if people want to be here and they want this to be their kind of forever home or temporary forever home, that they have the tools to be able to do that. And so that's where my focus is. If someone gets an opportunity to expand what they do outside of the world of puppetry, then I support that as well. But if people want to be here, I want them to have the ability to stay here. And so sometimes it's a case-by-case basis in terms of figuring out how to create a solution for that. But it is hard. It's super hard.
Yeah. Last question.
I was so happy to come today here. I never visited this place, so thank you for making it. And one question, would you, usually people come here for the puppet show. Do you ever consider taking the puppet show outside of its place?
Okay, I'll repeat that question. The question is, have you ever considered, we know that people come here and get to see puppetry. The question is, have you ever considered how to take the puppetry out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back in the day, before my time, there was some of that traveling that went on. It was hard. I mean, cost-wise, it was challenging. I think because endless opportunity and possibilities, right, that it is something that we can look into doing again. We get asked a lot to go to places, in Old Victory and Kennedy Center. We get those requests. I would love for that to continue, not just in town, because we get those requests too, like, hey, come to the Land Botanical Gardens, come here, what have you, but really to take a show on the road. If you've ever been to a main stage theater production here, it's a big production. And so to be able to take that, move it, and travel with it is an investment. And right now we don't have the infrastructure for it, but it's something that we are looking at for sure. Also, just to say, we are so fortunate to have a lot of guest artists come here who are coming from their home theaters. And so we are kind of the place to come, which is really cool for us because we're able to share different types of puppetry and, again, different perspectives and different ways to tell stories. And we're able to do that, whether it's in this theater or our main stage theater. And that's both in the U.S. as well as international troops as well. But we would love to get our shows out there. Yeah.
Y'all give it up for Beth Schiavo this morning. Oh my goodness. And if I missed your question or you have more you want to know about the center, I know Beth may be around for a little bit. We've got some other staff here as well. Let me tell you a couple of quick things before I let you go. Number one, I want to shout out our video partner, Off the Record. Raise your hand, Off the Record, people who can. Every video we have looks crispy because of Off the Record. So if you need someone to help your things look crispy for a fee, you too can work with Off the Record. Make sure you do that. Also, our last event of the year is next month. Those of you that may be new to Creative Mornings, we have morning and evening events now. So we alternate, right? This month we're having a morning event and our evening event is next month. It's called Creative After Hours because don't you love to be creative in your after hours? Teresa Davis, who is a poet extraordinaire. Any of you that know the poetry scene know Teresa Davis. She has agreed to do a writing workshop on the theme of truth at Arts Exchange. That's November 17th. That's the Thursday before the Turkey Days. Okay, so get involved and do that before the holiday. Yes, that's all my things. I shout out at everyone. Oh, I missed one more. We want to thank Gene Kansas Commercial Real Estate. They are our local partner here. If you know Constellations, if you know Indie Studios, you know Gene Kansas. So we wanted to thank them. Do not forget before you leave, please check out the museum upstairs. Mingle, get to know a few people, and thank y'all so much for coming. We'll see you next month. Bye.